welcome. I'm Janine Howard from Profile Magazine and Iconic Empires. And I've got one divine being to introduce you all to today, the gorgeous Rebecca Gibson, who I've known for many, many years. And she is, honestly, she's Australia's leading spiritual strategist and soul activator. And we're going to find out why she is that today and how she may have resisted it along the way.
Plenty of resistance.
So welcome, Rebecca, to the show.
Hi, Janine.
So good to have you here. And I really want to talk, I want to get straight into it. Could you share with our audience how you'll end up sitting here today looking just so incredibly gorgeous in your spiritual divineness? But it's an interesting journey to get to this point, isn't it?
I have had an interesting journey. And look at my journey. So Janine used to be my business coach when I had another business. And then during that coaching period, these odd things started happening, and I got pushed very hard by the universe to then come out as a professional psychic medium, do the work that I do now, when I was very, very, very resistant to doing that because of my career in psychiatry. So I've been in psychiatry for 24 years, and psychic mediums and psychiatry still don't blend very well together. So I had kept it secret for such a long time, and I can't anymore. So here I am, out and proud.
Wow. And can we go back to some of the stories about like when you were resisting it, like what space were you in, like where were you working, say way back in the day?
Yeah.
I really want to ground this for people that some people may look at you today and just go, oh my God, whoa, she's like fully down with the woo and that's never going to be for me. But what you actually do for people is help them uncover that soul purpose within them, whatever it is for them.
Yeah.
And that's really what your journey has been about. So take us back to a time where you were like, oh, no, I'm not doing this soul purpose thing.
Well, I'll give you a quick timeline of my life. So I've always been psychic medium ever since I was younger. And during periods of abuse when I was a child, my guides would present themselves to me and say, even when I was very little, this is a soul contract. You will understand the purpose of this when you become an adult, and this will form a part of what you do to help heal people. And so I had it in my head then that I was going to be a lawyer, and LA law had come out at some stage during my childhood, and I was obsessed. And while all of my friends are playing Star Wars at school, I'm organizing mock trials where I'm the defendant and the prosecutor. I've got the judge, making people sit, pretending they're juries, even though I was making all the decisions. And I had started my law degree. My whole schooling system was based on, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to eventually go into politics. I'm going to make sure that all pedophiles stay in jail and understand where serial killers switch from being normal children into serial killers. And I started my law degree. My guides had come to me again because I'd been in a Catholic system with parents who didn't believe in that. So I had been basically told my whole life, you need to stop talking about this. You're coming across as crazy, and keep it to yourself. So I did. So I'd started the law degree. My guides started coming to me again. I had started channeling a lot at that stage, and they said, you need to go into the medical field and do it that way. And I'm like, oh no, no. My ego was so attached. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be this. I'd written a letter to Bob Hawke when I was 9 saying I'm going to be the first female Prime Minister of Australia. Keep my seat warm. He wrote a letter back. I still have it. And so my husband at the time was really badly burned in an accident. He had 65 to 70% second and third degree burns and wasn't expected to live. All of these miraculous, big dramatic things that happened during that time. And I took 6 months off university, was with him in a burns unit for a month, and then came home, and he couldn't do anything for himself. So I started nursing him. My guides came to me again. You are to swap over into nursing. When you finish your degree, we're going to make a job for you in correctional centres, and you're going to go and work in the jails, and you're going to work with pedophiles, and that is how you're going to create your best healing. And I was like, this is never going to happen. A nurse, like, I'm not being a nurse. So then that was very resistant. So they at me, push, push, push. So I did. I went into nursing. I started working at the morgue, had to do that, stopped doing that because the bodies were talking to me, and I would get caught quite often speaking back, not realizing other people around, and that's not normal. And so I stopped working at the morgue and I finished my nursing degree. I went into forensic mental health, and within 9 months, this brand new position that had never been created in New South Wales before came available at the local correctional centre. And so I applied for it, and it was for somebody who had been working for at least 8 years, who had had postgraduate qualifications, which I didn't because I'd only been out of university for 9 months. Got the job, did that for 10 years, really started to understand how souls work, the difference between souls and ego, and just because people do evil things doesn't mean that they're soulless. And I got to play around with some very violent offenders in terms of talking to ego and then bringing their soul up to the surface and being able to tell the difference when I was speaking from soul and when their soul would be reacting. And then moved into psychiatry, kept resisting my guides. I really shut it off when I was working in the prison system. It was very hard for me to be very psychically open in that kind of environment. And I didn't understand that I was an empath. So I was like taking on board all of this very toxic emotional energy. And my body started getting very sick. I became very obese. I developed a lot of autoimmune problems. I nearly died several occasions from blood clots in my lungs and stuff, and I still had to put 2 and 2 together because I was so spiritually unhealthy. My physical health had started falling apart, and my emotional health, I'd become very closed off and very rigid and too much in my masculine. And so life kind of keeps pushing me into things. And then when we were having our business coaching, do you remember the light in the car, and the car stopped in the middle of the intersection when Sienna was a baby?
Yes.
So I was having all of these strange things going on while I was having business coaching over this other very practical product-based business. And I had my daughter, she was just a year old, in the back seat, and on her side, I'd gone into an intersection, the light had been green for ages, and then this blinding bright white light, I still can't explain it. Just the car stopped in the middle of the intersection. I couldn't see anything. And then I just remember seeing out of the corner of my eye, a car had run the red light, was speeding way over the speed limit. If it had hit, she would have been killed, my daughter. And so the car kind of looked to me like it had gone through the front of my car, and I got very weird. And I was driving home, and I was just so weirded out. I got home to my husband and I said, oh, this weird thing happened. And I explained to him. He's like, oh, here you go. You've been a drama queen again, blah, blah. And I said, no, it really did. So he goes and looks on the dash cam. He's got, what's that light? I said, I don't know. I can't explain it. So his very left masculine brain made me go back with him the next day at exactly the same time. He's trying to figure out if it was the light on the revision mirror. And I said, no, because the dash cam's in front of the mirror. It wasn't, and he couldn't work it out. And he's a whole time home. Why? And I was weird. I was very spaced out, ungrounded. And I got home in this loud voice, pick up a pen and start writing. And I started writing every day for months and months, about 4 hours a day, channeling stuff about politics that's now come into play, all of these world events, natural disasters, what my purpose was. I need to come out and tell everybody that I'm a psychic medium. Enough is enough. You need to do the work now. And I'm like, no, I've been in psychiatry for 20 years at that stage. I can't do this. What's everyone going to think of me? My colleagues are going to think that I'm crazy. I might lose my registration. Fear just kicked in, and it was a compulsion. I couldn't stop doing it. Then they started waking me up in my dreams, telling me all the time, stop resisting. You're resisting the divine. You're denying the divine. How dare you let your ego get in the road of the spiritual work that you need to do? You're part of a revolution of the rising of the feminine. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to do this for your daughter's sake. If I hadn't pushed it, was for my daughter's sake and the world that she'd be living in. I can remember we used to have a lot of conversations about the world we want to create for our children. And I'm like, I just have to do it. And so plenty of resistance until this year, where I went back to work and then worked. didn't want anyone to know. Every now and I would freak out about people knowing. I stopped sharing on social media. It really restricted my growth of business. And every now and then I'd check to see if people had been searching my website. And it was good because they raised my SEO. Because every time someone started gossiping about it at work, I'll go, check out a website. Thanks for that. But then I got myself to a stage where I was become very unhealthy again, hadn't been focusing on my spiritual health, had been ignoring my guides and basically telling them to rack off, and spontaneously broke my foot, which forced me to not go to work and has forced me to push the business. And now my business is just going boom.
And of course.
Yeah, I do. I need pain to move through resistance. I have this belief system that I'm hoping to delete that tells me things need to be a little dramatic, Rebecca, for you to get the message.
She does love a bit of drama. So let's cancel, clear, delete that.
Yeah. So Control Alt Delete.
Control Alt Delete. I wanted you to share that story because we are really coming into a time where people are starting to have a spiritual awakening. And people are often thinking that they are a little bit crazy. And what are people going to think about me? And really still hiding in what we call the spiritual closet. Now, could you speak into that topic about why it is so important that people follow these little messages that they're getting?
I think we've come through this time where people have ridiculed and mocked spirituality. People have been thought, oh, they're tree hugging hippies, or they're crazy, or they're this. And we've really fallen into this very masculine patriarchal setup. Our system is set up by white men. We all have been working to increase the wealth of white men, and that's just how the system is. And so it's not working. The world's falling apart. We have climate crisis that people don't want to admit because then it affects their bottom dollar and their income earning potential. And so we've been very deliberately marketed to that anything around spirituality is bogus. There's no reality in it. And if you believe in it, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And now, because humanity and Gaia, the earth, the cosmos actually needs us to shift our frequencies. We are starting to wake up. And it's very hard for people in the beginning when there's really nowhere to turn to. Thank goodness for social media. There's really nowhere to turn to, and you're like, I'm crazy, there's something wrong with me. I recently had someone blood related to me, very, very concrete left brain, does not believe in anything like this. His thoughts are, when you die, that's it, that's the end. He's gone through a spiritual awakening, felt that there was something wrong with him, started seeing a psychiatrist, and then eventually rang me and said, these things are happening to me. What's going on? Like, oh, you're waking up. This is excellent. I'm so happy for you. He's like, I'm crazy. I'm like, you're not. You're waking up. So it's even happening to people who have been very concrete around the idea that there's just ego and there is nothing else. And it's not. We are spiritual beings having this human experience. We have souls and higher consciousness. We have access to quantum consciousness. Everything is frequency, consciousness, and sound. Everything, all of us, we're all connected. We're all part of the same organism of energy, source energy. And so in order for energy to be able to survive the way it needs to, we have to start waking up and changing the way that we look at things, changing the way we run business, changing the way that the economy works and how we're using money. And now women are really stepping up, especially in the online world, making far more money than they would have in the patriarchal system in which we've been stuck working in, and learning new ways to use that wealth, because predominantly the feminine, and when I say feminine and masculine, I'm talking about energy, I'm not talking like binary gender. The feminine is very nurturing and creative with money. The more you create, the more you nurture, the more there is prosperity and abundance for everybody, not just the system that's been set up for hundreds of years to take the majority of the wealth and then hoard it, keep it, and let everybody else suffer. Now we're waking up, this is not how the world's going to work. I do not want this world for my child. I do not want my daughter growing up in the patriarchal society that I grew up in. I never want her to have to experience her moments of Me Too or anything like that. So I've got to do my part. And so now I'm putting myself out there. I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. This is what's happening. People are waking up. You have a soul purpose. You're about to realize what it is. You need to fulfill that soul purpose. The payoff of doing that is joy and expansion and prosperity, and getting to have a midday bath after doing this and just enjoy myself listening to music or watching whatever, and then going to pick my daughter up. And it's so much nicer. And I'm so blessed to have had the female friendships that I have had. I've come from a very male dominated masculine environment where most of my friends were from that environment too, and were men, to now having friends that they're all women, they all have their own businesses, they're all super successful in their own right, multi-millionaires creating things. And I'm so blessed to have been able to call that in, because it's helped me realize that anything is possible, and that it's truly possible to have an online business where you don't actually have to work that much and pull in great amounts of wealth and just do what you want and have fun. It's, pinch myself.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I want to really ground this for people listening, that to give you an example of how this works. So I remember, Rebecca, you and I had a session many years ago. It was when my children were just babies, and we'd swapped tables. So I wasn't coaching you, you were coaching me. And you'd actually said to me in a reading, a channeling, that you saw me in front of women in these beautiful events with these gorgeous flowers, really beautiful environments, and helping them with their purpose. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. I'm so not doing events, not into events. I don't organize events. What are you talking about? Whatever. I'm a business coach, magazine girl. Anyway, today I literally stand in front of women in beautiful environments with gorgeous rooms, and I literally talk to them about their purpose. And I talk about vibrational frequency, and I talk about spirituality. And so it's like, we all have that within us, whatever it's true for us. And it may take a really long time for us to land in it. And in fact, I will also say that it's almost like we do need to take that time to calibrate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because your frequency will start to shift. The more when you awaken, it's not like just bang, you're awake and that's it. You go through gentle periods of awakening. The first ones aren't very gentle because it's such a shock to the system. And then later on, you have more gentle ways of waking up to more consciousness, more access to consciousness, understanding more about how energy works in the universe. I didn't study science at school. I couldn't stand anything. Now I drown myself in stuff to do with quantum physics and all of this scientific research around how cells communicate to each other, how sound works. And it reawakened my passion for singing and singing to heal autoimmune issues, and as a way of managing my pain, and understanding that when my cells vibrate because of the frequency that I'm generating from inside of me singing, I'm actually helping to recalibrate myself. And now my singing's taken off. My business is branching in ways to move around my singing because I have so much joy. Now I'm singing here at Lizottes next month in a couple of weeks. And I have these big visions for what's going to happen with my spiritual-based business and bringing my singing in together, starting to collect instruments for sound therapy for the meditations that I do for my clients, and being able to understand how to articulate spirituality in different ways to suit the language of each client that I have. Because not everybody, if I was to say everything's sound, everything's frequency, I'd have one client be like, what are you talking about? And someone else is like, I totally get it. And so then to the other client, I would be saying, things based in your emotions have an energy to them. And so it's very important for you to work through that emotional energy and release it. And so they understand things at that level. It's, I just love it. It's exercise. I always say, people say, how can you be like that now? How can you have like all my clairs open? I understand how to use my clairs, how to control them now, like clairvoyance, clairaudience and stuff, where my strongest abilities are. Everybody's psychic, how to get my clients to bring out their strengths with their psychic abilities and have them understand it's nothing to be fearful about. It's not a gift. Everybody has the ability, it's inherent. And so I explain to people, you're only seeing me now, or I've been exercising this in an apprenticeship for 25 years, but really exercising it daily now for years. Just like people look at my husband, who's a bodybuilder. Wow, how did you get that big? So I go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week and I work out. You don't get like this just because you want to manifest it. You've got to put the work in. So exercising your spiritual health is just like if you were going to the gym, or if you were doing things for self-care to help with your mental and emotional health. The spiritual practices that everybody should be putting into place to be able to be soul-led and not ego-led. Because when ego leads you, ego puts you into places where you're working hard for money, not enjoying it, letting life happen to you and thinking that you're getting butt kicked constantly. But when you're soul-led, that's your highest consciousness. That it's your intelligence. It's heart intelligence. Your heart's the smartest organ in your body. And that's where you pick up quantum consciousness, and that's where ideas come through, and that's where you start to create things to help other people tap into their inner wisdom and their highest intelligence. And then they know then what they're supposed to be doing. And then that's how we progress as a society now. Not the way things have been going. It just doesn't work anymore, and it's leading us down a path of destruction.
Yeah. And, you know, I have great hope and faith that the world will shift rapidly because we are waking up to our soul purpose and our divineness and consciousness. And I want to say to anyone listening to this that Rebecca has come from, you know, from a science background, you know, in terms of nursing and psychology. I am a scientist. So I went to university to study to be a biology and environmental studies teacher. So it's that grounding that actually helps us make real sense of the spiritual realm, because it's actually not an airy-fairy concept. All of these concepts that you're talking about, Rebecca, are literally proven in science now, aren't they?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so glad that science is catching up.
Yeah.
I have discovered this woman called Dr. Teresa Buller. She's a quantum physicist. She has such a beautiful way of articulating spirituality into science and allowing you to understand why and how things work without it seeming like it's airy-fairy, bogus nonsense. And it's really helped me to find, I don't articulate it with as much grace as she does. I'm still very clunky around it, but really being taught by her is making a huge difference for how I communicate with my male clients, because a lot of male clients that I get are very grounded in ego. This is all bogus hogwash. Their wives probably sent them, and they stick with me because of the monetary value that they're getting out of their businesses doing the things that I tell them to do and how their business is expanding. So I have one particular client at the moment who's literally in the States. He's just met with Richard Branson, and now he's meeting with another celebrity who's investing in their business. And his trajectory of what's happening with their company will be the $1 billion mark. So I can remember when he first saw me, he's like, "This is a crock." I said, "It's not. And I really don't want you to speak to me like that again," like boundaries put in place. I don't need to be doing this. I could just go back into psychiatry and I could just be getting that wage, and I could stick with what makes everybody else happy. And everybody believes in that, and it's all grounded, and it's, you know, stuff that's concrete for people. But instead, I'm risking my reputation at the moment in that field to do this. So please don't think that I'm doing this as something airy-fairy. It's not something that I need to do for money. This is something that I have sole contracted to do, and I'm taking it very seriously. And your business, their business is very much about reducing carbon emissions from energy efficiency stuff. I know that that business needs to take off for our environment. And so I'm very invested in making sure that that business goes where it needs to go. So I'm invested in him. Once he saw that, and then once things started coming true that I told him was going to happen, he's a convert now. He's over having all these celebrity meetings talking about his spiritual coach. Everyone's like, what? You're what? And then they actually just met with Gabriel Macht. I think that's how he pronounces it. He's on Suits.
Oh, yeah.
So he was being interviewed, and the coach that they're working with interviewed him, and he's like, I've become this successful because I have a spiritual coach. My wife gets spiritual coaching. This is how you learn how to manifest. And I was like, oh. And then my client's like, I told you. Get a spiritual coach. It makes a huge difference because people want results quickly. You see somebody like me, I'm going to show you the quickest way to get those results, which obstacles are going to come up, how to navigate around them, or just ignore them completely because they don't matter. Who are the best people for you to be speaking to in order for this to flow quicker? And everything's about flow. I do not do hustle. I can remember when I started this business, my very first webinar was stop the hustle and move into flow, because I was watching people like Gary Vee. Hustle, hustle, hustle. You have to be up until 3 a.m. I'm like, you don't look healthy. You don't look happy. That's not conducive to good family life. There's actually better ways to be doing this. Like my friend Denise Duffield Thomas just wrote Chillpreneur. She's like, no, it's all about chilling now. Just sit around, have your midday bath. Don't be pushing and forcing the energy to move somewhere. Just allow the divine nature of how energy wants to move, and just find a way to float with it and go with the flow.
And we have all found, because we have a circle of friends that we have seen literally being extremely successful, multiple seven figures. You know, for me, my business really took off when I learned how to get into feminine flow. And literally my formula that I teach my clients too, it's you need to work less so that you can earn more. You need to work less so that you can earn more, because the hustle energy is actually very low vibrational, and you can't do much with that. No. It always feels hard.
There's a ceiling to it too.
Yes, absolutely. And that's an interesting point that you just had. A lot of women and men come to a point in their business where they feel like they're hitting a ceiling. So speaking to that, if you can, what is that ceiling?
That's where the energy just doesn't have room to move anymore, because you've steered it down the wrong path and you've kind of got stuck. It's like if you were in a river, and so the way you would hustle would be either to swim upstream because you think that's where you're supposed to be, and then you just exhaust yourself, burn out, fall apart, can't function anymore, you're just drowning. Or as people, oh, I need to be over at the riverbank. That's where I need to be. That's the safe place. That's my goal. That's the ultimate happiness. I'll be happy when I get over there. And so you're swimming across the stream and it's still moving a little bit, but you're like, no, you're so resistant to going with the flow that you resist so much, thinking that that's the end goal over on the bank, that you don't even realize that if you just relaxed and went with the flow, utopia is at the end. But fear makes you think, oh, it's a waterfall, I'm going to die. If I just let myself go with the flow, I'm going to die. I need to reach there. That's the ultimate goal of happiness. So like, no, I'm actually going to be happy within. I'm just going to lay down and flow and be happy within, and trust the universe that if I do this and it feels good to do it, when I get to the end, it's not a big waterfall, but it's a big oasis of abundance and birds and flowers and vegetation and fruit and fish, and everything that I could possibly need is at the end of that flow. I just need to trust and relax into it and enjoy the ride.
You couldn't have said it any better. That's such a gorgeous analogy. And, you know, the word flow, it's not just a word, it has an energy around it. If people followed that, you know, I was talking to my clients yesterday saying that flow for me means feminine love opens wealth. Like we all come from that feminine place of love. And again, it's not binary, it's not male, female, but we all have within us that beautiful feminine energy. That's where wealth comes. That's where beautiful opportunities flow.
That's right.
It's there for us.
And it's the trust in understanding that, say when you're creating life, you have a baby growing inside of you. You trust that your body, your subconsciousness is doing everything that it should be doing in order for that life to flow. So you learn, I need to rest and relax, stop stressing about it, just accept what's happening. And then at the end, I'll have this beautiful, healthy baby and they'll go out to do wonderful things. So I think what happens with resistance is basically when you resist something, you're not trusting it and you don't have faith in it. And so it's not coming to you because you're putting an energetic boundary up saying, I don't trust that you actually exist. So therefore you will never be in my life. And so when you trust that feminine flow of energy, like you trust your body to do that it should be, it's a dance between getting your ego to trust soul and have a harmonious working relationship between the two. And I do this a lot with my clients. I actually have a coaching program at the moment teaching women to unlock and activate their queen archetype, and that your queen archetype works harmoniously with soul because she understands that she doesn't have the highest intelligence. Soul's the highest intelligence. So if I'm working with the highest intelligence, I too will prosper from what happens from this alliance and this harmonious relationship. Whereas our victim archetype or our prostitute archetype or the martyr is so resistant and fearful from their egoic place. Like, I don't trust soul, I don't know, I've been told my whole life not to trust the soul, there's no such thing, I'm just going to keep doing this way because I know it's safe, even though it's not happy, I know it's safe. And queen archetype is like, no, let's get this happening because I trust your higher intelligence and I know that what's waiting on the other end of me is playful and lovely and I want it.
I adore everything you talk about, Rebecca, and I know that there'll be a huge majority of people listening to this that will completely resonate, and there may be a lot of people who don't resonate, and that's completely fine as well.
But lots of my clients come to me first, like you did. If this does not resonate, you're making me really uncomfortable. I want my money back. I'm like, you're triggered. And you're triggered for a reason because deep inside, you know what I'm saying is truth. And at the moment, your ego's like, shush your mush. That's what used to happen to me. I can remember one serial killer sat there and I'm like, no, I can see your soul's in there and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. So I brought soul out. He upended my desk. Stop looking at me like that. Stop looking at me. It was ego. I had a complete reaction. But he started crying. And then after that, our sessions after that, he was a completely different person from then on because it activated. He was very triggered at first because ego was triggered, but then after that he was completely different after that, which people thought was impossible, but it wasn't. And it's a bit different from the clients that I deal with now.
Let's hope.
Yeah, a bit
different. So if you're a serial killer and you're looking for a spiritual
that's a whole other life. And this is another thing that happens with spiritual health. It's like, I don't even know who that person was anymore, that version of Rebecca. I don't look like I did. Remember when we first started coaching, I did not look like this. Everything has shifted because I've exercised my spiritual health and my frequency is much different.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to point out that you're kind of illuminating off the screen. So
because the more work I do with clients, the more it happens. But my daughter has actually seen, sometimes if I have a lot of clients in one day, do a lot of readings, I get a burn mark on the middle of my forehead. And I was like, what's happening? And then one day I had a massive download. And because she's only 5, when they're so young, they're still really tuned in and they can see things differently and it hasn't like been propaganded out of them. And so she's like, mommy, what's that light? And I said, what? She could see a big beam of light coming out of my forehead and out the back of my head while I was channeling. And now I'm like, oh, that's why I get that burn mark there. And then everything just goes glowy after, because I've been pulling in high frequencies. And in order for you to do that, you have to be raising your frequency up to match. You can't, you can still be psychically tuned in, but it's not going to be clear if you're not daily putting practices in place to clear it and focusing on your gut health. Gut health is vital for good psychic connection because your receptors that are picking up most of the information are in your gut.
Okay, so interesting. Could you give us a few more dot points of what is spiritual health? Like, how do we keep our spiritual health?
So spiritual health is exercising your soul, understanding your frequencies, understanding what to do to bring all of your energy into self. So number one is to ground yourself every day. There are different ways to ground your energy. The best way is bare feet, walking on the grass, because the earth emanates her own frequencies that are designed to help us heal. And for anybody who wants to look up, just look up Schumann's resonance. It's SCHUMM or MWAN. Sorry, Schumann's
No
resonance.
W, but yeah.
That's the Earth's frequencies, so they're measurable. Our Wi-Fi has been affecting them, so they need to be measured from out in the ocean now, where our Wi-Fi doesn't interfere. So our man-made frequencies are interfering with us. And I think that's another reason why we're all awakening so quickly too, because our frequencies are being shifted by the ones that we're creating. And so the beach, if you're lucky to live near salt water, walking in salt water on sand is a great way to ground yourself, or even just on bare concrete, because concrete will conduct electricity. People say, what's the importance of grounding? And I say, if you look at a thunderstorm and if lightning spreads across the sky, it's pretty, but it's not as impactful, it's not as bright. The energy lines of the lightning just don't have as much impact because it's spread itself too thin and it's everywhere scattered. When it grounds itself and it hits the ground straight away, the thunder's huge and the earth shakes and it's like a big chunk of lightning. It's so bright, just like bang, because it's all of its energy is pulled in. And another really important thing is to make sure that you're cleaning your energy off, because we all constantly interacting with each other with energy. Our electromagnetic fields communicate to each other before our senses even kick in. So before I've even seen people, I'll feel them in my presence. Before you've smelt them or seen them or heard them, you'll understand that they're near you because your big electromagnetic heart space is communicating. So we are hooking our energy into other people hooking our energy into us. You'll find if you start thinking about somebody that you haven't seen for a while and then all of a sudden you've seen them, it's because you've been connecting energy into them and pulled them into your experience, into your energy. So there is what's called cord cutting, where you cut the cords that other people have attached to you. Tons and tons of free guided meditations on YouTube how to do that. But the other more important thing that people don't talk about is you need to retract your own cords, because just because people got cords attached to you doesn't mean that when you're cutting the cord, you're cutting the cords that you have attached into other people. So you have to be super responsible and accountable for your own energy. And I teach my clients, you really vacuum and you press the cord, the button on the cord, and the cord gets sucked in. I imagine that I've got all these USB ports on me and there's all these phone chargers out. So I press my button, all my chargers go and get back in. And I do that morning and night. I do it like I would wash my hands in between patients. I cut cords and retract cords in between clients. And I make sure that I clean off my energy as much as I possibly can, which is very good because I don't need as much sleep to function now, because I'm constantly consciously connecting into universal energy. So I don't need as much rest, which is what led me to be working one night on, one night off, one night on, and sleeping 3 days a week and not dying. So that helped. Once you start doing these things, it just makes things better. There are lots of different tools and exercises that you can use to really kick off your psychic abilities and tune in. But just being consciously aware of your energy and how you're communicating with people. Boundaries are another huge thing for spiritual health. Energetic boundaries, but boundaries with people, not taking on board other people's emotional stuff, knowing when you're rescuing others and when you're people pleasing, and understanding that when you rescue and people please, you're actually manipulating the circumstances because you're trying to avoid an outcome that you don't want, that's probably in conflict. So that's another way to be responsible for your own energy and to become more spiritually healthy. Meditation is a huge one. Lots of people are, I don't want to meditate. All that meditation and mindfulness does is to quieten your ego down. Your ego gets so bored, it couldn't be bothered talking to you. So it's not like nattering on about, you should have said this, or you should have done that, or what if this happens, or what if that happens, or did you hear what she said? Your ego's just like, oh my God, this is boring me. And so the next minute, soul's like, yes, she can hear me. And then all these ideas start flooding. I've been trying to get your attention. And your brat's been running around, you know, when you want to have a phone call and your kid's like hanging off your ankle, mom, mom. That's what your ego's like. Mom, pay attention to me. Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, get off the phone. Mom, mom. You know what it's like.
Oh my gosh, I've got 2 children. I know what it's like. Yes.
Yeah. So then finally one of them like shushes up and your friend's like, oh my God, now she can hear me. Hey, I've got this really cool idea. Your soul's exactly the same thing. Your soul's like, oh, that ego, just put it in timeout, coloring in for a little bit so we can have this adult conversation, and then ego can have your attention after that. So that's what meditation and mindfulness does. It just shushes your ego up for a bit so your soul can say, hey, this is your purpose. This is what you're doing. All that nagging feeling that you've been getting, it's not a nagging feeling. This is legit. Listen. And a lot of the times when it starts, none of it's going to make sense. And you'll just keep getting this push constantly to do something. Like, I don't want to do that. Like mine, when I first started this spiritual business, was putting hearts in places. And hearts was so juvenile to me. I'm like, I don't want hearts in my branding. I really don't want hearts in my branding. They're like, do it. I'm like, but I really don't want to, but I did it. And then 2 years later into it, I start talking about heart intelligence, and that's where your quantum consciousness comes in, and branded one of my groups for my program Diamond Heart, and understanding diamonds form when they've gone through such heat and pressure and trauma to get to the other side, because they kept raising their frequency until it emerges a diamond. And that's exactly what our hearts are like. In order for us to get rid of that hard shell, we have to keep vibrating higher and pushing through the layers of the trauma and the darkness and all that yucky, icky stuff that happens to us. And when your heart comes out the other side of it, it's a diamond. It uses such strength and brilliance and the ability to absorb all colors and reflect everything. And I'm like, wow, now I totally know why you pushed me so hard to use hearts. I get it. Even though it didn't make any sense at first.
You know, Rebecca, I could listen to you all day, and you know, we've had many deep conversations about all of this. So I'm really going to encourage people that if they could also hear you all day, like to really connect in with you. So can you just give us, like, where is the best way that people can find out more about you?
Facebook's where I tend to spend most of my time, because I can go live a lot and I always talk best on the fly. So I have a Rebecca Gibson spiritual strategist on Facebook, or you can find me on Facebook, Rebecca Gibson. And I have a Facebook group called Diamond Heart, the Evolutionary Empath. And then I have another one called Golden Goddesses, and that's for women who are really using their light and their soul purpose now to shine it into their darker parts and alchemize it into gold. And that the gold that they're sharing now with the universe is a very deliberate alchemy of the nonsense crap that we've gone through the previous years of our life to make sure that we're now using that to be our best and our greatest. So there's those 2 groups. I'm on Instagram, Rebecca Gibson Psychic Medium. I have a website, www.rebeccagibson.com.au, and a YouTube channel called Golden Goddess TV.
Amazing. So if you're at a stage where you're really wanting to, say, grow your business from something more than just that hustle and more from that really linear, and really looking for something that seems a bit outside the realm, but really we know that that is the way that the world is going. That is the way that wealth is being built, that more feminine trusting and going with the flow, then I highly recommend go and check Rebecca out. So Rebecca, thank you so much for today. You're just,
thanks for having me.
a luminary.
I did not used to be.
You are now, and just
Thank
you're
you.
shining bright for everyone else. So it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.